It is organised, violent thuggery, and it has no place on our streets or online.
You're a child abuser! You child abuser! You child abuser! Where's Jimmy Savile?
She campaigned to remove the cap on migrant worker visas, and now she pretends she's furious about the open borders policy of the last government.
Did you ever think you'd see the day when Keir Starmer, the man who promised change and competence, would face thousands demanding his resignation just months into office? The political tsunami hitting Downing Street isn't just another protest. It's the culmination of what many are calling the greatest political bait and switch in recent British history. From Annelisa Dodds' resignation over international aid cuts to the masses shouting outside Number 10, we're witnessing the dominoes fall in real time. This video breaks down exactly how Starmer's carefully crafted image crumbled so spectacularly, and why his political oat milk centrism might be the final nail in his leadership coffin. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The political earthquake no one saw coming shattered the Labour Party's veneer of unity just months into Starmer's premiership. Annelisa Dodds, Minister for International Development and a trusted Starmer ally, resigned after the Prime Minister slashed international aid budgets, a decision that directly contradicted campaign promises made just weeks earlier. This wasn't merely a policy disagreement, it represented a fundamental betrayal of Labour's long-standing commitment to global humanitarian efforts. The specific cuts targeted programmes providing essential medical supplies and education resources to developing nations.
Coordinated, we went through some of the numbers. Over 400 people now have been arrested, 100 have been charged, some in relation to online activity.
He wants to talk about the past. The fact is we've acknowledged where things went wrong. He will never take responsibility.
Initiatives Labour had vehemently defended while in opposition. During his campaign, Starmer had repeatedly emphasised Britain's moral obligation to the world's most vulnerable. Yet his budget revealed a striking 12% reduction across multiple aid categories. For Dodds, this wasn't a matter of fiscal responsibility, but a question of basic Labour principles. Internal communications revealed this wasn't an isolated concern. Before Dodds made her decision public, several shadow ministers had already expressed alarm in private meetings. One senior Labour figure reportedly warned that abandoning international commitments would erode the very foundation of what separates us from the Conservatives. These internal tensions had been simmering for weeks, with Dodds attempting to negotiate compromises behind closed doors until realising Starmer remained unmoved. The announcement landed like a grenade in Westminster. Within hours, political commentators were describing it as the first visible crack in Starmer's leadership. Parliamentary colleagues who had maintained public solidarity began cautiously distancing themselves. The Guardian ran the headline, "Labour's Moral Compass, Lost at Sea," while social media exploded with accusations of hypocrisy from disappointed voters who had believed Starmer's promises of ethical governance. Rather than addressing these concerns directly, Starmer's defensive response, were clearing up the mess that they left, only served to further alienate his base. This attempt to deflect responsibility onto the previous administration fell flat with both the public and party faithful, who expected Labour to govern differently, not simply offer excuses.
We're all in it together. The people who hurt your family finances swanning around in the House of Lords after giving tax cuts to the richest 1% that crashed our economy, don't forget any of it.
Promised to end asylum hotels. He promised, he's the Prime Minister now, he promised, but in Altrincham and Peterborough, his government is expanding the use of asylum hotels.
The messaging strategy backfired spectacularly, appearing tone-deaf to the genuine moral objections raised by Dodds' departure. As news spread, Labour's traditional support base experienced what one MP described as a cascading crisis of faith. Constituency offices reported unprecedented volumes of angry communications, while union leaders who had backed Starmer's leadership bid began questioning their support. Student Labour organisations across 5 major universities published open letters condemning the decision, with one stating, "We campaigned for principles, not power for power's sake. That sentiment, principles not power for power's sake, would prove prophetic in the weeks that followed. Starmer's political strategy, dubbed by critics as the political oat milk effect, was brewing a perfect storm of public discontent. Like its namesake beverage, Starmer's centrism offered a bland, inoffensive alternative that ultimately satisfied no one, watery enough to alienate his base while failing to convince skeptics it was worth switching to. After years of conservative chaos, voters hadn't just wanted a change of party logo, they demanded transformative policies addressing their daily struggles. Instead, they got what one union representative called Tory light governance with a red rosette. The disconnect between campaign rhetoric and governing reality couldn't have been starker. The green energy revolution promised during Starmer's campaign became the most glaring casualty of his centrist pivot.
He has relaunched yet again. Many new targets, 6 milestones, 5 missions, but why was cutting immigration not a priority?
Whatever the apparent motivation, this is not protest, it is pure violence, and we will not tolerate attacks on mosques or our Muslim communities.
The ambitious vision of making Britain a climate leader through massive investment in solar panels and wind turbines quietly disappeared, replaced by cautious statements about fiscal responsibility. This reversal hit particularly hard with young voters who had mobilised their peers specifically around environmental issues. NHS funding followed a similar pattern. While campaign Starmer had promised substantial investment to heal a healthcare system in crisis, governing Starmer delivered tepid commitments wrapped in carefully worded press releases, emphasising pragmatic approaches and gradual improvement. His non-committal stance towards striking nurses, once praised as essential workers, left many healthcare professionals feeling abandoned. Workers' rights protections, a cornerstone of traditional labour values, received equally lukewarm treatment. When train conductors continued their industrial action, Starmer offered polite but meaningless platitudes rather than the robust support his campaign had suggested. Social media transformed this simmering discontent into organised resistance. TikTok videos comparing Starmer's campaign statements with his actions as Prime Minister racked up millions of views.
He appointed a person convicted of fraud to the cabinet. The first thing she did was bung hundreds of millions of pounds in pay rises to her trade union friends.
Building to this for 4 years. We're confident we have a plan that can move our country forward, end the cost of living crisis.
On Reddit, the Our Broken Promises subreddit dedicated to tracking Starmer's reversals became one of the fastest growing UK political forums. The hashtag #OatMilkPolitics trended as voters shared their personal disappointments. For ordinary Britons facing soaring inflation and energy bills, these betrayals weren't abstract political concerns, they were deeply personal. As one viral post put it, "He promised to help with my heating bills. Now I can't afford to turn the radiator on, and he's abandoned the green transition that might have fixed this mess." The Downing Street protest didn't materialise from thin air. What mainstream media portrayed as spontaneous anger was actually the culmination of weeks of grassroots organising across university campuses, union halls, and community centres. Volunteers coordinated transportation from northern constituencies, produced thousands of signs, and created detailed response plans for various scenarios. The domino effect that began with Dodds' resignation has cascaded into a full-blown leadership crisis for Starmer. Behind closed doors, whispers of potential challenges grow louder daily, with at least 3 senior Labour figures quietly gauging support for a leadership bid should the situation deteriorate further.
Well, no, I mean, certainly we wouldn't want to reach across US citizens, and we don't, and that's absolutely right. But in relation to free speech in the UK, I'm very proud of our history there. Wanton violence alongside racist rhetoric. So no, I won't shy away from calling it what it is. Far-right thuggery.
But Starmer's survival hinges on something far more fundamental than political manoeuvring. The profound message captured on one protester's sign cuts to the heart of his predicament. Not just because you failed, but because you forgot why they believed in you to begin with. This sentiment perfectly encapsulates what's at stake. Not just policy failures, but a perceived abandonment of core principles that once inspired hope.